Hello, welcome to another episode of Stories of World War II Veterans. My name is Kayleen Reusser, and I'm the author of 10 books on World War II veterans based on my interviews with 260 of them. Today's story will be taken from my book, We Fought to Win. American World War II veterans share their stories. It will be about the Army Air Corps and a man named Ed Goetz. At 0300 hours in March 1945, Ed Goetz's B-29 flight crew of 12 was flying a 1,500-mile bombing mission from Saipan toward Japan. It was the 22nd bombing mission for this crew. Goetz, a native of Cincinnati, Ohio, served as flight engineer. He was responsible for maintaining mechanics for the big plane. The crew usually consisted of 11 members. The extra member that night was an observer for the bombardier. Suddenly, the plane's propeller lost control. When the pilot nosed the plane up to slow it, the propeller ran faster. The pilot frantically asked the navigator for directions to Saipan. Upon being told the plane was close to the island of Agrihan, north of Saipan, the pilot headed in that direction. The radio operator sent the plane's location to the Saipan control tower shortly before flames shot out from the engine. The pilot quickly instructed the crew to don parachutes and exit the plane. They obeyed. The last crew member, a pilot, had just jumped when the plane exploded. The dozen airmen dropped into darkness over the ocean, not knowing if they would ever see each other again. Goetz, 24, had flown bombing missions from Saipan to Japan since November of 1944, hoping to survive to someday be reunited with his wife, whom he had married in October 1943, was uppermost in his mind as he zoomed toward Earth in the darkness. Upon hitting the water, he tried to inflate the one-man life raft, which was attached to the parachute harness, but lost it. He cut the shroud lines of the harness before they could drag him under the surface. Goetz scanned the sky and ocean for rescue. He prayed the plane's radio signals had been received. He didn't see or hear anyone from his crew and worried that no one had survived the explosion. Shortly before sunrise, Goetz spotted a nearby island. He tried to swim towards it, but the early morning current caught his body and threw him against the shoulders, gashing his head. When the waves threatened to suck him under again, Goetz was exhausted and gave up. He swam away from the rocks, trying to stay afloat while awaiting rescue. A few hours later, he was overjoyed when a seaplane flew over his location. Using the military mirror in his flight suit's knee pocket, Goetz focused on the sun to signal his location. He was thrilled when the pilot returned a flash signal indicating he had seen Goetz's signal. Goetz next pulled a packet of light blue sea dye from another pocket of his flight suit, spreading it around to mark his location. Then he grasped an inflatable raft that the rescue plane's crew dropped, hoping it would stay inflated for several hours. "I prayed my rescue would be soon," he said. Unbeknownst to him, the plane had already picked up several members of his crew. After the rescue plane flew off with members of Goetz's crew, an American military ship, the USS Cook Inlet, spotted Goetz. It was doing Dumbo duty, meaning it was looking for survivors, he said. The ship's crew helped him and other crew members safely aboard. Hours later, after receiving medical attention and warm clothing and food, Goetz discovered the fate of his crew. Everyone had survived the explosion but the plane's co-pilot, Colonel Douglas Northrop. His body was never found despite a week-long search by teams in the ocean and on Agrihan. At the end of the extensive investigation as to the cause of the crash, It was decided a welding error inside the propeller's hub had caused oil that controlled the prop to pump out. Goetz continued to fly missions through July 31st, 1945, for a total of 37. He was discharged in November 1945 and resumed an education at the University of Cincinnati College of Engineering. In 1964, he moved to Indiana to work for Franklin Electric in Bluffton, Indiana. "I was glad to serve my country," he said. Ed lived to be 100 years old, passing away just a few days after that. Thanks to all the veterans watching this. I hope that you will subscribe and like this and share so that more people can learn about our amazing veterans. Tune in next week for another episode of Stories of American World War II Veterans.